Okay, I wanted to go over a couple of the practice problems and some errors that I'm seeing overall. I've been correcting your work, and hopefully, you've been looking back over your work at the corrections. If you've already completed the mixed quiz, if you could double check it and resubmit it before you have me grade it. I would really appreciate that. So I'm looking at the mixed problems where you had the odds that were assigned and the evens were extra credit. And I want to look at number 11. So number 11 says calculate the mass of mercury metal, Hg, that required to produce 29.8 grams of mercury 1 oxide, Hg2O, according to the following balanced chemical equation. And it gives you the equation. First off, some of your problems that you had, they just gave you the name and not the chemical formula. And some of you were not looking at the name and you were guessing. And that's why you got some of your problems incorrect because you were looking at the wrong formula or using the wrong formula. So use that ion list if you need to. And that's where you had maybe some masses that were incorrect. So if we're looking at this one, I started the setup of the problem. They gave you the formulas, so hopefully it just was making sure that you were reading everything correctly. So we're given 29.8 grams of mercury, 1 oxide, and here is your mass. Some of you are looking at the right formula, but you're not writing down the correct masses. You're not calculating them correctly. So double check that. This is the part that I want to point out. Make sure you label your substances, okay? And I will explain why. The first step when you're going from mass of A to moles of A, this step is always going to be a 1 mole. I'm seeing some students that are wanting to put in the equations coefficient for this step. That will go right here when you're going from moles of A to moles of B. This middle step or the second step, and I've said this in a lot of notes that I've sent or wrote on papers, so hopefully this video will help make clear up what I'm saying. This middle step is the only step where your moles may not be number 1. It could be a different number. Your first step and your third step, your number of moles will always be the same because look, your substances are the same. Your substances are the same. They're not the same in this middle step here. This is where you go to your balanced equation. So the coefficient is going to be a 2, I believe. Yes. And a 4. Let's use a different color. Because I like to make that kind of stand out there. That this is the step here where they can be different, okay? And then when we're back at this step here, again, this is going to be 1 mole because your substance is the same. The middle step is where they're going to be different. I'm seeing where students are putting in a 2 here and a 4 here, and that's getting your answers incorrect. I'm having some students that are flip-flopping this middle step. You know you're going from moles of A to moles of B, but you're flip-flopping it because you're not labeling your substances. You're trying to get through it fast, and that's where you're making your errors. If you're going to take the time to set up the problems, you want to make sure you get them correct, okay? That's why I've been trying to really reduce your number of problems that you've been working, that you're not working a whole bunch of them out because I know it takes some time to write all of this out, okay? So then you multiply everything on top. So 29.8 times 1 times 4 times 201, and that will be, and then you multiply everything on bottom, so 418 times 2 times 1, and you're going to divide to get your final answer. Okay. So let's real quick take a look at number 15. Okay, so number 15 wants to know your formula units or your molecules of sodium chloride, NaCl, are produced by the reaction if you have 40.3 grams of chlorine gas, Cl2, that's reacting with sodium metal. And then they give you the balanced equation. So with this one, some things I want to point out. The mass. Some students are just putting the mass of one chlorine down and they're putting 35. It's 70 because you have two. Earlier, you had some practice problems where you had P4. You had phosphorus. They said phosphorus in the problem, but if you looked at the balance equation, it had P4, and you needed to make sure you took the mass of phosphorus, which is 31, and multiplied it by 4, okay, which is 124. I typed that number a lot or wrote that number a lot down also for corrections, okay? So really make sure you're reading your formulas when you're going to calculate your masses. So let's go on and erase this because that P4 we don't need. Okay, so again, this first step right here, okay, so your given is 40.3 grams of diatomic chlorine. Again, in this first step, since we're going chlorine to chlorine, you want to make sure you put chlorine in here. Okay, I think I'm set and ready to go. So this first step right here, when you're going from mass to moles, since it's both diatomic chlorine in this equality, you're going to put a 1 mole in here. It's this middle step here when you're going from moles of chlorine to moles of sodium chloride. That's where you look at your equation's coefficients. So we're going to put a 1 here. And the coefficient for NaCl is a 2. Okay. And our third step, when we're going to go moles of NaCl to molecules of NaCl, this is going to be a 1 because the substances are the same in this equality. Now, it's important. Whenever you're going back to double check your work, look, did your chlorine cancel out? Yes, it has to be diagonal from each other to cancel out. Your moles of diatomic chlorine, it canceled out. Moles of sodium chloride, it canceled out. You're now in molecules. If you have this middle one flipped and you had NaCl down here, NaCl and diatomic chlorine will not cancel out. Diatomic chlorine, if you have it up here, is going to make it squared, and we can't do moles squared of diatomic chlorine, okay? So hopefully this video helped with some of the common errors that I've been seeing. If not, please, please, please reach out with me and go in for tutoring, come in for help, and we'll do our best to make it through this unit.